Hi, everyone, welcome back to the podcast. Welcome all new listeners and welcome back to those who have heard my content in the past. If you want to know what are the three non-negotiables to be a successful sports PT, you have to tune into this episode. Before I go on to the podcast, what is new in life? Last week, I told you guys I've been really good about my wellness routine, my ice baths. And recently, I just added back in, I'm doing a mini cut. For those of you following me on Instagram, Chris Garcia, DPT, do these little mini bouts of calorie deprivation and carb deprivation. So like low carb, higher protein, but just low calories in general. So I do these every once in a while as kind of a personal reset. I took it from one of the athletes I used to work with who does MMA, and they do this before their fights, and they do it obviously for the sport, but also the mental struggle that happens when you are calorie deprived. It'll definitely take a toll on your mental status. So for those of you who wonder, I definitely do it for the mental challenge. I appreciate it. So I'm currently on one of those, so enjoying that. But what else is new? The family's great. Coming off some time together and just hitting a reset button, enjoying life. Other than that, life is good. All right, on to this podcast. Three non-negotiables to be a successful sports PT. This comes from a question somebody randomly asked me. Actually, it was a non-PT, and they said they're in a different profession. They're in dentistry, and they said to be a good dentist, there's certain qualities that make a really good dentist. Somebody who enjoys what they do. They can last their entire career, just have that passion. They can deliver great outcomes. They enjoy their job. And then they asked, okay, what is that? What is that for a sports PT? What would be the equivalent? And I had to really dig deep. Out of all the years I've been mentoring, out of all the years I've been practicing, I had to bring it to what are the top three things that I would say that would define a successful sports PT, or the things that need to be done to be a successful sports PT. Like, what does it take to get there and stay there is the biggest thing. So that's what I wanted to cover today. It got me thinking, and I appreciate the question. It really got the wheels turning. So I want to share it with you guys. Wherever you are in your practice, whether you're a grad student, you're an undergrad, you're a new grad, you're an established clinician, or you've been practicing for 30 plus years and you're looking for something to make sure you're on the right path, or you just want to refine a couple things. So this will help every single one of you to be able to make sure that you're staying within that professional lane. I think the big thing I can tell you after mentoring a lot of sports PTs is, I think there's a lot of times where you can ride this wave of, I'm going to be a great clinician. I'm taking all the courses. I'm doing all these things. I'm on it. And then life just hits you, and you come back down, and you try and come back up, but you just don't get that motivation. It's very, very tough. And today I want to cover what are the three things that like you just can't go without to be successful throughout your entire career. So I started off a couple notes here. The first one I said was invest in yourself, make yourself first. And, you are, as you start in your career, I've learned this in parenting and in marriage, when you start in your career, you start, for a lot of us, you start in undergrad, or you start in PT school, you start in your career. For some of you, you're single, or maybe you met somebody in PT school, but nonetheless, at some point, you were on your own. You created your own professional goals, and I tell people it's the most selfish time of your life, and enjoy it. Right? It's the time where you get to grow personally and professionally on you. It's like a very rare time. And, when you become a parent, when you get into marriage, it's no longer just about you, right? There's just so many other things you have to be able to manage and make sure that the people are happy, and you're taking care of, dogs, kids, house, so many other responsibilities. So the focus becomes less on you. And as you grow professionally, I think that you start selfish. And the thing that happens as you develop in your career, and you develop more responsibilities, you don't you forget what it's like to just take care of yourself, and putting yourself and investing in yourself is such a big piece. You do it early in your career, and as the other responsibilities come in, you put yourself second, you put yourself third, just naturally, because maybe you become a clinic director, and it's all about the staff, and it's all about the patients, and then it's all about your marriage and your kids and everything else. And maybe you're single now, but the thing I can tell you is you have to make sure that you started selfish, but you should still continue to be self first. And what I mean by that is you have to invest both time and money. And I'm not just talking about CEU allocation, right? Like most people are like, oh, I don't want my user or used up my budget, right? Your budget is just to complement what you should be investing in yourself, right? So if you see an additional course, fit that into your budget. Why? Because that's personal and professional growth. And at some point, you know, 300, 600, 900, 1200, 2000 is not going to be enough for your professional development. It's just going to be enough to get you your PT license, but not to take you above and beyond where your current status is. And for many PTs, a podcast or, a real quick webinar is going to be good to kind of satisfy that itch. But ultimately, this is a lifelong journey, and you can't expect one weekend or 2 weekends is really going to make sure you're on the right path. So I tell people to invest in themselves, take seminars, take workshops, take additional courses, things that are developing you, not just your skill set. And, whether that's finance or fitness or your own career path, you need to take care of yourself and put yourself first and go back to some form of being selfish. Because if you are constantly about taking care of others in, you're the clinic director, you take care of everybody else. If you're not enjoying what you're doing, you'll find yourself stuck without passion. And if you're looking at this being your career, the thing you want to do, this is a long, long journey. And if you're not putting yourself first, taking care of yourself, investing in yourself, time, energy, money, whatever that is, it becomes very difficult to keep that passion. And that's where people get burnt out. And I've mentored clinicians throughout their entire career up until I think 15 years of practicing. And what happens is there's certain markers that I can tell you, if you don't get to those markers and you don't continue to put yourself first and do these things, you have burnout. And it's easy to find you either change from, ortho to sports, sports to ortho, ortho to hospital, hospital to peds, to like you jump around because you're constantly seeking it out. And the reality is that you really haven't taken care of yourself, and you're always looking for something to make sure that passion's there. And it's not just changing specialties, it's really just understanding what is the thing that drives you, what's still like pushing you to be there. And I think that you constantly putting time, energy, and money into yourself is going to be a good point to make sure that you are enjoying the right things, and then you're staying on that path. So if you love sports PT, right? For some of us, I did a residency. I knew that I knew I had to dedicate allocated time inside a program to set me up for success. I knew that's the way I was going to do best, right? Versus studying on my own. But that's just me. The second part to that is, as I elevated in my career path, and I worked in pro sports, and I worked in different capacities, and I was very fortunate to travel the world. During that time, I never took that for granted. I looked at that as an opportunity of like, how do I develop inside this new opportunity? So it was constantly about, okay, so I have this new role. How do I get better at being a leader? How do I get better at being a strength and conditioning specialist? How do I get better at working with athletic trainers? How do I get better at working on massage with massage therapists? Even though I was a physical therapist, it was constantly, if this is a new opportunity, this is what I have, I maximize that to the nth degree, not take a CEU course so I can learn new taping jobs. It was, what was the thing that I needed for my career path right there and then? There's a lot of times that I didn't have I didn't have a CEU course to give me that direction. I didn't have that. So I had to go out and invest and take that additional opportunity to just put more time and money into myself. And during those times, it was very tough to see the benefit of that. But what it did, I can guarantee you this, what it did is it kept my passion going. It kept me very active in my profession. It put me amongst my peers, allowed me to be a leader within any domain that I was in. And why? purely because I was passionate about it. I wanted to learn more. I wanted to take ideas from everybody and take it to that next level. So even if I was still successful within like my eyes, I was always trying to figure out, how do I take this opportunity, learn from it, get more education so that way I can be even more successful in that next opportunity. And most people, when they get those opportunities, they just stay still. They're like, okay, I'm just going to enjoy this for a little bit. And that's okay. But the thing is, you can't stop making yourself or putting yourself first, in the sense that you need to develop constantly. And if you rely on one or two CEUs, you're doing the bare minimum. And I don't know about you, but a lot of times, for you to get where you are in your career path, wherever however you got to where you're at right now, you probably didn't do the bare minimum. You went above and beyond, right? Whether it was grades or jobs or work or observation hours or, skill sets or opportunities, you've never been the bare minimum type of person. So what changed when you got into PT school? What changed when you became a PT? What changed when you hit the 5-year anniversary as a PT? How did a bare minimum become your standard? And I think that most people become bare minimum because it's what our licenses require. And that's okay for a while, but what happened to that mindset? What happened to you as you were practicing? When did you shift from superstar to bare minimum? And if you followed that, it's not your fault. It's just that the system kind of put you into that same place. But whereas PT school required that you had a B plus or above or whatever the grade was, and you had a pass certain test, well, when you go into clinical practice, there's no more standards. There's only just don't fail. And it's a good wake-up call. Okay, well, what else should I be doing so that I'm moving in my career path? So I can't answer that for you. What I will tell you is, just keep moving forward by putting uh, the time, energy, and money into developing yourself without being the bare minimum type of clinician. It'll set you apart from your peers, and that's really, I imagine, that's the thing that you want to continue to do. If you love and are truly passionate about it, it's the thing that you can do to stay above the rest. That's number one. So invest in yourself in any form or fashion. That's number one. Number two, this goes with that investing in yourself. This is reflect on your personal and professional goals consistently, constantly, annually, weekly, monthly. So I tell you, if you're constantly investing in yourself, right? Like you're like, all right, I'm going to do 52 podcasts. So I'm going to do 5 CU courses. I'm going to, whatever that number is, right? Then once you've done that, you can't just do that for the rest of your life. You have to constantly reevaluate your personal and professional goals. And what this does is it ensures that your passion stays high, right? So say, for instance, you're like, all right, in order for me to become the best sports PT, I'm going to pay out of my own pocket. I'm going to take the SCS exam, right? And you're like, that's an investment. I would agree with that 100%. I don't think that you have to do that if you want to. Now, you take that SCS, and then you're like, oh, well, the next step for me is to get my CSCS or get my Fellow of American, whatever, manual therapy. And after that, it's going to be, it's not about credentials, right? It's about what is that now going to bring you within your professional goals. So the SCS is going to give me, an opportunity to work with better patients. I can get better outcomes. You can become a clinical director. You can have better opportunities in your profession. All right. What does that do? That helps you stay fulfilled and being like, that's what you signed up for. You signed up to work with athletes, work in a pro setting, whatever your thing is. And if you're constantly reflecting on your personal professional goals, you're just making sure that that direction is in the right path, because it's very easy to say, I'm going to do all these, you set these markers and that's my path. And if you do that for 5 years and you never look back and you're never like, what is it that I was trying to do again? You forget about that and you're like, you're miserable. You're like, I have all these credentials. I have a great job, but like, why do I do all this? So if you are doing it right, you're putting time, energy, and money yourself. Number two, you're reflecting on those things. You can't go full steam ahead without reevaluating, because you'll burn out. This is the second way that people will burn out. If you become the bare minimum PT, you're just cruising. You're not really going to be thrilled about going to work anymore. Number two, you're not reflecting. So you're just full steam ahead. You're burning, both ends of the candle, and you're like, why am I doing all this? You find yourself stuck. And I can tell you at different points in my career, I've struggled with both of these. I went off the deep end in investing myself. I can tell you easily, I've spent six figures just on my post PT school, purely on my personal development, my education, everything clinically that I wanted to develop, because it was the thing that I needed for the direction that I wanted. Secondly, I've been in a point where there was like a four-year gap or 4-year time span where I found myself working hard, 80, 90-hour work weeks, going to CEU courses, doing all the things that I thought were right. And I found myself questioning why I was working so hard. I forgot why I was putting all this time in. And it was not like that I had never considered it. It's just I worked so hard year after year. I didn't really think about why did I do this from the beginning? So currently, every single month, I set a target. And every single Saturday in between that month, I'll reflect on, am I achieving that goal? But that's all set up from an annual goal. I know this year I want to blank. For me, this year was to host all of my CEU courses and launch my Sports PT Academy. It was the thing that I've been wanting to do for, the last 5 to 6 years. And that was the thing I wanted to accomplish. And why? Because I want to have an impact on this profession. I want to give options to those who maybe don't want to do the SES, who maybe don't want to do a residency, the ones who have done a residency in SES still haven't found those opportunities, or maybe they don't know where to start in the sports world. I want to have an impact on this profession and on this planet to get PTs like you an opportunity that you didn't know was possible, that you don't have to go through the loopholes of the APTA or the sports section or whatever it is, that you can accomplish whatever it is that you want within your respective community without having to be involved in these things. It can happen. And I want to be able to create that path. So for me, that I knew I wanted to change. And year by year, I mapped out exactly what I wanted to do to be able to help people like you. And that to me was critical. And so I had to set that goal a year or two ago to make sure that I knew that this was going to fulfill me. This was the thing in my professional development. For you, I can't answer that question, right? You're at a different stage, you're at a PT school or whatever it is, or you want to mentor more students, you want to be a CI, you want to be a clinic director, whatever it is, that requires planning. And if you go full steam ahead and you don't realize how close you are or why you're still doing it, or is that the route that you still want? I think people are afraid to fail. I think that they set a goal. They're like, if I don't do it, I'm going to be embarrassed. People are going to judge me. Who cares? No one really cares. That's the fun reality of this planet. No one cares whether you accomplish your goals or not. It's just you. And so that's why it's so critical that you're constantly reflecting. You're looking at like, is this still important to me? Because your wife, your spouse, your husband, your family, they don't really care. They just want to make sure you're happy. Your peers don't really care about whether you become that clinical director or you get your SCS like you planned. They're not going to judge. No one really cares. So really what you're doing is you're working hard for others to look at you like, oh, like you're the crush it PT, like you can accomplish so much. But why? As long as you're in the right path for your current goals, reflect on it. If you don't love it, move on. People fear being judged by that. But the reality is, who's going to be the unhappy one? It'd be you more than anything else. It's what I've learned in my career path. And if you can follow these 2 points, it puts you in a place where you're like, all right, I'm successful. I'm enjoying what I'm doing. I'm on the right path. Set the next target. Reflect. Is this the right step? Am I in the right direction? Awesome. What's next? So number 1, invest in yourself. Number 2, constantly reflect on your personal and professional goals. And the last one, this one's this one hits home more for me than anything else. It's more about consistency than drive. So somebody who's driven is like, the initial launch of a rocket, right? Like they go all out, full speed, they launch into space. And then there's like a fizzle, right? You're like, oh, that was tough. I worked 80 hours for 6 weeks straight. Okay. I'm just going to relax for the next 4 months. I'm just going to take a break. And so when you see this ebb and flow in clinical practice, you see people who come in hot. They're like, I'm going to be the best. And then they just kind of fizzle. And you see them around for a little while and they kind of fizzle. The sports PTs who get the job opportunities that they want, who are successful, who are in the place that they want, they're thriving, they're passionate, their energy and passion is top notch, it's consistent, are the ones who don't really ebb and flow. And I'll give you an example. My wife and I, when we do CrossFit together, right? So we train 5 days together, and her and I are so different in our approach to how we approach workouts. My wife is a D1 800-meter runner, and she has learned to pace exceptionally well. Like she can get down any form of 200-meter repeats, 400-meter repeats, 800-meter repeats, down to like within 1 or 2 seconds. She's very, very consistent at that. So when we work out together, if we do a round of exercises or a circuit of some sort, and she completes a single circuit, she can be consistent within 3 to 5 seconds every single round for 10 rounds. I, on the other hand, I love to be the lead and maintain the lead based on everyone else around me. So I'll hit 90% from the beginning, and then I'll come back down to 70. She will just hit 75 to 80 and just cruise the whole workout. And I'm the opposite. And over the years, I have found it to be extremely frustrating because she constantly beats me on longer workouts. Why? Because she's just so consistent. So over the last 2 years, I've changed my methodology that in my clinical practice, I am very consistent. I am absolutely consistent on my evaluations. Everything is the same. My notes, my progressions, my templates, my strength and conditioning, everything is the same. And then I finally applied it to my workouts. For some reason, I was doing them very, very differently. So I applied it to my workouts, and finally I get to beat my wife 1 out of 5 workouts. But before, I wasn't really doing that. And the reason is because I needed to just be consistent across 75 to 80%. Despite what, despite what other people were doing, I was trying to match everybody else or beat everybody else. And what happened was I lost focus. I couldn't keep up with my wife. I couldn't hold that same pace. And as I've seen it in PTs, I see the same thing right out of PT school, right out of third year, or new grads come in hot. They're like, oh, I'm going to crush the world for about a year or two. And then you're like, whoa, I got a dog, I got a house, I got married, and your effort changes. And it's not these new relationships. It's now managing different stressors, different things. And you don't put yourself first. You don't continue to invest in yourself. You don't have consistency. You don't constantly reflecting. And when that happens, you got this ebb and flow in your professional development. And I know, because I can tell you I've done the same. And the thing I can see now coming back from, viewing it 10,000 feet above, the best thing you can do is just be consistent. You don't have to come out hot out of the gate. You don't have to have these large jumps. The consistency is really what's going to allow you in your professional career to last the entire lifetime of your career path, but with the highest passion possible. There's a lot of people who've been practicing 35 years, 20 years, but all they've been doing is practicing that same year after year. So instead of practicing for 20, they've only practiced 1 year, 20 times, doing the bare minimum, only 1 CEU class, 2 CEU classes, never setting lofty goals, never reevaluating, never reflecting, never putting above and beyond time, money, energy into themselves, doing the bare minimum. And you know who those clinicians are. You see them, they're your peers, they're the people inside your clinic. They look like zombies just walking around, just doing the same monotonous thing, 5 sets of 10, 3 sets of 5, add a green band, 5 pounds, taking the bare minimum CU courses, not even applying it to the clinical practice, enough to just keep the license. And that's okay if that's what you want. But if you're looking to be a successful sports PT throughout your career, these are the three non-negotiables you have to have. And I'd even tell you about taping jobs or manual therapy or ergonomics or whatever it is. So I'm sorry if you were looking for that. But the reality is, if you don't conquer these top three things, you'll be stuck in a career you don't enjoy. With great skills, you'd be a fantastic clinician, absolutely fantastic, hating it, burnt out, questioning why you're still doing this every single day, day in, day out, looking for something different, hoping a new job will fix that, hoping a new setting, a new specialty will fix that. But the reality is, people seek these things out just because they're not happy. And the reason why they're not happy is it, it it hasn't been about themselves anymore. And you just constantly have to invest in yourself. You constantly have to reflect and be consistent across the thing. Invest, reflect, consistency. Those are my top three for you. Wherever you are in your career, you might want to replay this one back. It's the thing that I can tell you after talking to the dentist. Uh, I really had to reflect on this. It's like, what are the best PTs that I've seen in my career? My current mentors live this life. I still see them absolutely crushing it, like living life, and you can just see it. Like, why are you so happy? How are you such a good sports PT and you've been practicing 25 years? How are you doing that? It's very easy. They show these three things. They invest in themselves, they're constantly reflecting, and they're consistent. And I'm pretty sure this is probably the same thing with professional athletes, with highly skilled professionals within any craft. Whether it's a cardiologist or an accountant or a police officer, it's the same thing. And if you apply this to being a sports PT, you'll be in a good place. So whether you're a new grad, listen to this again in 2 years. If you've been practicing for 5, listen again at 10. So wherever you are in your career, I hope this helps. Keep replaying it. It's going to be very, very important because you'll find yourself getting stuck. And if you are a sports PT who finds yourself stuck and you need help getting out, or you're being proactive and you're like, I don't want to get to that place. How do I stay in this path? How do I stay motivated? How do I stay in this career path where I know I'm going to be thriving the entire time? If that's something for you, I think the next step is to join my Sports PT Academy. It's something I've developed. It's the same things that I tell you on this podcast, except it's now your time to be able to ask these questions. It's your time to figure out in your career path. I give people advice, I give people support and feedback, but ultimately it doesn't work if you're not implementing it. And that's the difference between learning and growing. Learning is taking in information, processing it, being like, oh, that was great. That was a good little nugget that I can take away from me. And growing is implementing that same information immediately into your clinical practice. And when you are growing, your professional development is exponential. Because when you go to a CEU course, you spend a whole weekend learning things, right? You probably take 1 or 2 things, and maybe you don't implement it that first week, that first month, it's gone. So you actually never grew as a professional. You really never really implemented any of that into your practice. Well, what happens? It was worth nothing. And so if you're taking in a lot of information and implementing minimal, you're not growing. And that's important for you to know. So even though you're investing in yourself, that's the wrong path. You need to be implementing. And for a lot of you, you need help with that, whether that's accountability or progress checks or whatever it is that you need. Some of you learn best by accountability, targets, goals. And that's what I give my Academy members. I give them targets and goals to work on every single month. Based on this is what you need to be doing. Go out, find these things, work with these coaches, write these programs, send them to me. It's an opportunity for you to finally grow as a clinician wherever you are, whether you're a third year PT student or you're a new grad or established. It doesn't matter. You're going to fall off the wagon, or you want to prevent falling off the wagon, or you're coming fresh off a third year. Like, I want to skyrocket in this profession and maintain that and not fizzle. Then the Academy is perfect for you. So I wanted to share that with you. I hope that helps in your clinical practice. I hope you guys are all thriving, and just don't forget to be consistent in your career path. Don't let other people, challenge and change that. It is really about you and your career path. No one will judge you. It is the most important thing that I've taken away over the last 5 years of developing physical therapists while growing a practice and having 3 kids and a marriage. If you can put yourself in a position where you are constantly doing these 3 things, you'll enjoy what you do. You'll be thriving in your marriage. You'll be thriving in your profession. You'll have a well-balanced opportunity to make sure that you're successful and enjoying the whole thing. So wherever that helps in your career path, let me know. Send me an email. I love to hear feedback from you guys. Dr. Chris at drchrisgarcia.com. All right. I will see you guys on the next episode. Take care.